had a question on capital gains withholding tax in probably a couple of years. So it was interesting to revisit that during the week and have a look at, I think we get something new and we talk about it for a while, and it's all the conversations and the newsletters and everything you read about in the property magazines, and then all of a sudden it's gone, and because it hasn't been around forever and it mightn't affect you every day, you might forget about it. But this happened in July 2016 under the Tax and Superannuation Laws, that the purchaser for a property is obliged to comply with the foreign resident capital gains withholding payment in two circumstances. The first circumstance being if the vendor is a foreign resident, so easy decision there, doesn't matter what the price on the property is. If they are a foreign resident, then the requirements are there, and we'll talk about the requirements in a moment. Or where the market value of the property is $750,000 or more. So even when the vendor is not a foreign resident, so somebody who is an Australian citizen, an Australian resident, and they are selling their property, and your opinion of price is over $750,000 or more, then the vendor needs to provide a clearance certificate from the Australian Taxation Office. So if they don't provide that clearance certificate, so a foreign owner on any property that's being sold, an Australian resident on any property over $750,000, if that clearance certificate from the ATO is not provided, then the purchaser, so the certificate is provided by the vendor, the purchaser is required to withhold 12.5% of the sale price. So that's a non-final capital gains tax contribution, and they're required to pay that at settlement directly to the ATO. So, and the ATO, obviously, they will then make calculations about what the capital gain should have been. And if there's a, payment due back to the vendor, then, there are some documents that we've been having a look at over the week that suggest that it may not be returned, it may be held by the ATO as payment towards that person's next year's tax. So, it's certainly, as an agent, as a salesperson here, it's in your best interest to make sure that settlement goes smoothly. And of course, you want a smooth settlement, because what happens after settlement for you as a salesperson? That's right, you get paid. So clearly you want a smooth settlement. So if the property is over $750,000 as an Australian resident, if the property is owned, if your vendor is a foreign resident, I know I've said it a couple of times now, it's every single property you're dealing with. Over $750,000 for Australian residents, any price for a non-Australian resident or a non-resident of Australia, and the vendor needs to get a clearance certificate. Most solicitors are now just providing them as part and parcel of preparing the contract, but it's certainly something a good professional agent will be talking to their vendor about. So just making sure that you get it ready right at the beginning, so everything at the end is nice and smooth.